Hello, and welcome back to the Study English Online podcast, your warm, honest, and real space to grow your English through conversations that actually matter. I'm Sarah.
And I'm David, and we are genuinely so happy you're here with us today. Whether you're listening on your commute, your lunch break, or lying in bed avoiding your responsibilities.
David!
We are not judging, we are welcoming. Come in, sit down. You are among friends.
That is a much better way to put it. And today, listeners, we are talking about something that I believe is the single biggest invisible wall between English learners and real fluency.
And it is not grammar.
It is not vocabulary.
It is not even pronunciation.
It is fear, the deep, quiet, sometimes almost invisible fear of speaking English out loud, especially in front of other people.
Yes, and I want to say something important right at the beginning. If you have ever felt your heart beat faster before speaking English, if you have ever rehearsed a sentence in your head and then still stayed silent, if you have ever said, "My English is not good enough," and used that as a reason to stay quiet,
then this episode is for you, completely, honestly, and deeply. This is for you.
because you are not alone, not even close.
This fear affects millions and millions of people. People who have studied English for years. People who understand almost everything they hear. People who can read articles, watch movies, and follow complex conversations. But the moment someone asks them to speak, something inside them just freezes.
Freezes. That word is so accurate. It is not that the English disappears, it is that something stops you from letting it out.
Exactly. And in today's episode, we want to look at that feeling honestly. Where does it come from? Why does it stay so long? And most importantly, what can you actually do about it?
Yes, because we do not want to just tell you, be confident. That is the most unhelpful advice a person can give.
Absolutely. Telling someone who is afraid to just be confident is like telling someone who is lost to just know where you are. It helps no one.
So instead, we are going to go deeper. We are going to look at 10 real, honest ideas. Not magic tricks, not false positivity, but genuine things that can slowly and steadily help you break through that wall.
And as always on the Study English Online podcast, we are doing all of this through real, natural English conversation, B2 level, so the language is rich, meaningful, and useful, but still comfortable and clear to follow.
And near the end of the episode, we will also slow things down and look at some of the most powerful words and expressions from today's conversation, together.
So please don't worry if you don't catch every single word right now. Just stay with us, let your ears relax, and let the English come to you naturally.
And one small request before we start. If this podcast helps you feel a little less alone in your English journey, please subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and share it with one person you think might need it today.
Your support genuinely means everything to us. All right, let's begin.
Okay, so Sarah, I want to start with a question that might feel a little uncomfortable.
I'm ready.
Okay, have you ever known the answer to something? Known it clearly, completely, but still stayed quiet because you were not 100% sure your words would come out perfectly?
Oh, yes, many times.
Me too. And I think that is the heart of this whole conversation. Because the fear of speaking English is almost never about not knowing enough. It is almost always about not wanting to be wrong in front of someone else.
Yes, and there's a name for this. Psychologists call it the fear of negative evaluation. It means you're not just afraid of making a mistake, you're afraid of what someone will think of you because of that mistake.
Right, and in English specifically, this fear feels even bigger because English is not your first language, so every mistake feels like it carries extra weight, like it says something about you as a person.
Exactly. And I think that's the first important thing to understand. The fear is not really about English. The fear is about judgment, about being seen as less intelligent, less educated, less capable, just because your words came out in the wrong order.
And that is so unfair, because the reality is the complete opposite.
Yes, someone who is speaking a second or third language is demonstrating more cognitive flexibility, more courage, more effort than someone who has only ever used one language their whole life.
But the mind does not always see it that way. The mind says, you made a mistake, and then immediately asks, what did they think of you?
And that question, what did they think of me, can be absolutely paralyzing.
Paralyzing, such a perfect word, because it doesn't just make speaking harder, it can make you completely still, completely silent, even when you have so much to say.
So let's talk about how this begins, because I think understanding where the fear comes from is the first step towards loosening its grip.
Oh, I love that phrase, loosening its grip. Can we just stop for a second and appreciate that image?
Please.
Something has a grip on you, a tight, uncomfortable grip, and loosening it means you're not trying to throw it away in one dramatic moment. You're slowly, gently releasing it.
Yes, and that's exactly how this feels like. It's not a light switch, it's a slow, patient loosening.
Perfect. So, where does the fear come from?
For most people, it begins in school. Think about it. In a classroom, when you make a mistake in English, it's visible. Everyone hears it. The teacher corrects you. Sometimes people laugh. Even if they're not being cruel, the moment still stings.
Stings, yes. Even small embarrassments sting, and the mind remembers sting very well.
It does. And after enough stings, the mind builds a simple rule. Speaking English out loud equals risk of pain. So it starts steering you away from that risk.
And the painful irony is that the less you speak, the more that rule gets reinforced. Because you never build the evidence that speaking is actually okay, that mistakes are survivable, that people are often far kinder than you imagined.
Right. You never get to discover that most native speakers are genuinely impressed and supportive when they hear someone trying in their language.
And instead, you sit in silence and the fear grows bigger in your imagination than it ever would be in real life.
That's such a crucial point. Fear loves silence and distance. It grows when you avoid the thing you're afraid of.
So, the first idea is simply this. Understand the fear is not a sign that you are bad at English. It is a sign that you care, that you want to be understood, that you want to connect. And that's actually beautiful.
Yes, reframe it. The fear is evidence of how much this matters to you, and that's something to respect, not hide from.
Reframe, that's our first key word today, actually. To reframe something means to look at it from a completely different angle, to change the way you interpret it.
Exactly. Instead of thinking, I'm afraid, so I must not be ready, try reframing it as, I'm afraid because this matters to me, and things that matter are worth doing even when they feel uncomfortable.
Beautiful. Okay, second idea, and this one is something I wish someone had told me much earlier.
Go on.
You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to think. You do not have to fill every second of silence with words.
Yes, this one is so important. So many learners feel that if they pause, if they slow down, if they say or let me think, they have failed somehow.
But native speakers pause. Native speakers say, and and actually wait. Real conversation has breathing room. Real conversation has pauses.
And a thoughtful pause is actually a sign of intelligence. It shows that you are taking the conversation seriously, that you are choosing your words with care.
Compare that to rushing through sentences nervously and stumbling over every word just to avoid silence, which actually sounds more confident.
The pause. Always the pause.
So the fifth idea is give yourself permission to slow down, take a breath, think. The conversation will wait. The right words will come.
And if they do not come in exactly the form you wanted, that is okay too. Do your best with what you have. The attempt itself has value.
The attempt itself has value. I want that on a poster. Let me write that down.
Write it on your wall. Okay, sixth idea. And this is one I feel very strongly about.
Tell me.
Stop measuring your English against native speakers. Please stop it.
Oh, yes, this is a trap so many learners fall into.
It is one of the most damaging comparisons a learner can make, because a native speaker has had their entire life, from birth, to absorb this language. Every song, every lullaby, every argument, every joke, every bedtime story, all in English, from the very first moment of their existence.
And you are comparing your 5 years or 10 years or even 15 years of study to that, to a lifetime of full immersion.
And when you come up short in that comparison, which you almost certainly will, you interpret it as failure. But it is not failure. It's just an unfair measuring stick.
Right. It would be like comparing someone who has been running for 2 years to someone who has been running their entire life and saying, you're a bad runner.
Exactly. So the sixth idea is this: compare yourself to yesterday's version of yourself. That's your real competition. Not a native speaker, not a fluent friend, not some imaginary perfect version of yourself. Just yesterday's you.
Are you a little more comfortable speaking today than you were last year? Are you understanding a little more than you were 6 months ago? Are you finding words a little faster than you were last week?
That's progress. Real, meaningful, beautiful progress.
And that progress deserves to be recognized, not dismissed because someone else speaks better.
Yes, celebrate the small wins. They are building something real.
All right, seventh idea. And I want to talk about something that I think is massively underestimated.
What is it?
The power of finding your safe space to practice.
Oh, yes, this is huge.
Because not every situation is the right situation to take a speaking risk. Trying your English for the first time in a high-stakes, high-pressure environment, a job interview, a formal presentation, a conversation with someone who makes you nervous, that's genuinely hard.
And if it goes badly, it can set you back emotionally, even if objectively the English was perfectly fine.
So the seventh idea is find a low-pressure space first. This could be an online conversation partner, a language exchange app, a friendly local who is patient and kind, even talking to yourself in the mirror.
Talking to yourself in the mirror sounds funny, but it's genuinely one of the most effective things you can do.
Yes, because you can hear yourself. You can notice your rhythm, your hesitations, your pronunciation, and there's zero judgment. The mirror does not care about your grammar.
The mirror is the most patient conversation partner in the world.
It really is. And beyond the mirror, find your people. Find the English learners and speakers who make you feel encouraged, not judged, who celebrate your effort rather than highlighting your errors.
Because environment is everything. You'll speak more freely in a supportive environment than you ever could in a critical one.
So build that environment. Seek it out. Protect it. It's the soil your confidence grows in.
I love that. Confidence needs soil. It needs the right conditions to grow. Okay, eighth idea. And this one connects deeply to something I hear from learners all the time.
What do you hear?
I understand everything, but I can't speak. And I always want to say that gap is completely normal, and there's a name for it.
Yes, the input-output gap. You've spent most of your English time doing passive activities, listening, reading, watching, which are incredibly valuable, but they're input. They fill the tank.
Speaking is output, and output requires a different kind of practice. It requires you to reach in, find the words, and push them outward in real time, under pressure, in the moment, without a pause button.
And that's hard. It will always feel harder than listening, but it gets easier with repetition, with practice, with exposure.
So the eighth idea is start deliberately balancing your input and your output. For every 30 minutes of listening, try to spend 5 minutes speaking, even if it's just summarizing what you just heard, in your own words, out loud.
That one exercise alone can accelerate your speaking progress faster than almost anything else.
Because you're training the output muscle. You're creating new pathways between the knowledge you have and the words that come out.
And over time, those pathways become faster, smoother, and more automatic.
Exactly. So don't just consume, create. Speak. Even if no one is listening, speak.
Ninth idea, and this one is emotional. I want to be honest about that.
Please.
To some extent, you have to make peace with the discomfort, because the discomfort of speaking a second language may not fully go away, even at very advanced levels, even after years and years of practice.
That might sound discouraging, but I actually find it incredibly freeing.
Yes, because once you stop expecting the discomfort to disappear, once you stop treating it as a sign that something is wrong, you can start moving forward anyway, with the discomfort, alongside it, not waiting for it to leave first.
Right. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is speaking anyway, trying anyway, showing up anyway, even when something inside you is saying, wait, what if I get it wrong?
And getting it wrong is survivable. You know this intellectually, but until you experience it, until you make a mistake and watch the world continue to exist normally around you, you can't quite believe it in your bones.
So the ninth idea is this: walk towards the discomfort. Just a little, not all at once, not recklessly, but steadily, gently, persistently, a little more each time.
And each time you do, you're writing new evidence into your nervous system, new proof that this is okay, that you are safe, that your English, imperfect as it is more than enough to connect with another human being.
More than enough. Yes. And 10th idea, our final one, and it's perhaps the most important one of all.
I feel like I need to sit up straighter for this one.
You should, because this is the one that changes everything. The 10th idea is, remember why you started.
Oh. Because on the hard days, and there will be hard days, when your confidence drops, when you make a mistake that stings, when you feel like you'll never be good enough.
On those days, you need an anchor.
Yes, an anchor. And the anchor is your reason. Why do you want to speak English? To travel? To work? To connect with people from other parts of the world? To read books in their original language? To give your children better opportunities? To prove something to yourself?
Whatever it is, it's yours, and it's real, and it's worth fighting for.
So on the hard days, don't ask, am I good enough yet? Ask instead, is this goal still worth it to me?
And if the answer is yes, and I believe for most of you listening right now, the answer is absolutely yes, then keep going, keep speaking, keep trying, keep showing up.
Because progress in language is not always visible in the moment, but it is always happening. It's always accumulating. Every conversation, every attempt, every awkward stumble, it's all building something.
Something real and lasting and genuinely yours. And one day, not in some distant fantasy, but in a real, ordinary moment, you'll say something in English and it will just come out easily, naturally, without the fear. And in that moment, you'll look back at every hard conversation, every embarrassing mistake, every terrifying attempt, and you will understand exactly why it was worth it.
That day is coming. Keep going.
Keep going. Okay, let's slow down now and look at some of the most powerful words and expressions from today's conversation, because today was full of really beautiful, useful language.
Yes, and this is the part where we make sure the vocabulary really lands, not just passes through your ears, but actually sticks.
Exactly. So let's begin.
First word, paralyzing, or to be paralyzed.
If something is paralyzing, it stops you from being able to move, think, or act. In today's episode, we used it to describe the feeling when fear stops you from speaking, even when you know the words.
For example, the fear of making a mistake was paralyzing. Or, she wanted to answer, but the anxiety was completely paralyzing.
You might also hear, I was paralyzed with fear, meaning completely frozen, unable to act. Repeat, paralyzing, paralyzed.
Paralyzing. Next, a beautiful verb, to reframe.
To reframe something means to look at it from a completely different angle, to change the story you were telling yourself about it. In today's episode, we said instead of seeing fear as a sign you are not ready, reframe it as a sign you care.
For example, try to reframe failure as a learning opportunity. Or she reframed the difficult situation and felt much better.
Reframing is a tool, a thinking tool, and once you learn it, it becomes incredibly powerful. Repeat, reframe.
Reframe. Next, a very expressive phrase, to loosen its grip.
If something has a grip on you, it is holding you tightly. To loosen the grip means to slowly release that hold, not all at once, but gently, gradually.
For example, she worked hard to loosen fear's grip on her life, or understanding the problem helped him loosen its grip.
This phrase is beautiful because it gives fear a physical quality. You can almost feel it. And loosening sounds much more human and realistic than getting rid of it completely overnight. Repeat, loosen its grip.
Loosen its grip. Next, a key concept, the input-output gap.
Input is what you take in, listening, reading, watching. Output is what you produce, speaking and writing. The input-output gap describes the common experience of understanding a lot but struggling to produce or speak.
For example, many learners have a large input-output gap, or to close the gap, you need to practice output, not just input.
This is an incredibly useful concept to know, because once you name the problem, you can start working on it specifically. Repeat, input-output gap.
Input-output gap. Next, another expressive phrase, to sting.
To sting means to cause a sharp, sudden feeling of pain, often emotional pain. Small embarrassments can sting. A careless comment can sting. Even a small mistake in front of others can sting.
For example, his words stung even though he did not mean to be unkind, or the embarrassment stung, but she kept going.
Sting is a really vivid, honest word. It captures that feeling perfectly. Not deep, devastating pain, but a sharp little hurt that lingers for a moment. Repeat, to sting. It stung.
Sting. Next, a very practical word, to accelerate.
To accelerate means to increase speed, to make something happen faster. In today's episode, we said that practicing output can accelerate your speaking progress.
For example, reading widely can accelerate your vocabulary growth, or the right practice accelerates fluency.
Accelerate is a powerful professional word. You'll hear it in education, business, and everyday conversation. Repeat, accelerate.
Accelerate. Next, a beautiful metaphor, an anchor.
An anchor is the heavy metal object that keeps a ship from drifting away in the sea. But in everyday English, we use anchor to describe anything that keeps us stable, grounded, and connected when life feels uncertain.
For example, her sense of purpose was an anchor during difficult times. Or, keep your reason close. It will be your anchor on hard days.
Having an anchor, a reason, a value, a goal, is one of the most powerful things you can give yourself in any long journey, including learning a language. Repeat, an anchor.
An anchor. Next, a very important phrase, to accumulate.
To accumulate means to gradually collect or build up over time. Progress accumulates, experience accumulates, confidence accumulates. Even mistakes accumulate, and that's a good thing because each one teaches you something.
For example, small daily practice accumulates into real fluency over time, or trust accumulates through small, consistent actions.
Accumulate is a word that reminds us that progress is not always visible in the moment, but it is always happening. Repeat, accumulate.
Accumulate. Next, a phrase we used several times, to show up.
To show up means to be present, to appear, to make the effort, especially when it's difficult or uncomfortable. It's a deeply human phrase that carries a lot of emotional weight.
For example, even on hard days, she showed up and kept practicing. Or, showing up consistently is more important than being perfect.
To show up for something or for someone means you chose to be there even when it wasn't easy. And in language learning, showing up again and again is everything. Repeat, to show up.
To show up. And finally, one of my favorite phrases from today, to be in process.
To be in process means to be actively growing, changing, and developing, not finished, not perfect, but moving. It's a phrase that takes the pressure of arrival off your shoulders and reminds you that the journey itself is the point.
For example, you don't have to be perfect, you are in process. Or, every learner is in process. The important thing is to keep moving.
I love this phrase because it's both honest and compassionate. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are in process. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. Repeat, in process.
In process. Those are today's key words and expressions from the Study English Online podcast.
And please, don't try to memorize all of them at once. Pick one or two that felt real to you today, that connected with something, and try to use them this week, in a sentence, in a message, in a conversation with yourself.
Because that's how words truly become yours, not from a list, not from a flashcard, but from using them in a real, honest moment of your own life.
So let's bring today together, because I want to leave you with something you can actually carry with you.
Yes, today we talked about 10 honest ideas for breaking through the fear of speaking English, and I want to name them clearly one more time, simply, briefly.
Understand that the fear is about judgment, not ability.
Give yourself permission to speak imperfectly.
Start smaller than you think you need to.
Stop trying to be impressive, start trying to be understood.
Give yourself permission to pause and think.
Stop comparing yourself to native speakers, compare yourself to yesterday's you.
Find your safe space and your people.
Balance your input with your output, speak out loud.
Make peace with the discomfort and walk towards it gently.
And remember why you started. Let your reason be your anchor.
10 ideas, 10 gentle, honest invitations. You don't need to do all of them at once. Even one small shift can change the feeling of an entire week.
And I want to say one last thing directly to you, the person listening right now, perhaps quietly, perhaps a little nervously, perhaps in a moment where you are wondering if your English will ever feel good enough.
It will, not because someone promised you, but because you are here, because you are listening, because you are trying. And people who try, really try, always move forward.
Maybe slowly, maybe with detours, maybe with many, many awkward sentences along the way.
But always forward.
Always forward.
So keep going, keep speaking, keep showing up. You are in process, and that's exactly where you belong.
And if today's episode gave you something, a thought, a feeling, a word, a reason to try again, we would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments.
Tell us, what is the moment you feel most afraid to speak English? And what is one thing from today that you're going to try?
Your answers don't need to be long or perfect. Even one honest sentence from you is a win, because, look, you're already practicing.
You really are. And if today's episode helped you today, please like it, subscribe to Study English Online, and share it with one person in your life who is also on this English journey.
Because sometimes the best thing we can do for someone we love is to say, hey, you're not alone in this.
This is Sarah.
And this is David, and you have been listening to the Study English Online podcast.
Keep growing, keep speaking, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.
Bye.